Not sure what that is. Not sure what that is. Coming across now.
Do me a favor, can you speak louder? See if that works.
Okay. Testing 1, 2, 3. I got a yellow one.
Yeah, it works though. That sounds like you are outside during a hurricane.
Oh, no, that's horrible. How about that?
That's a lot better. That's actually, whatever you did right now is perfect.
How does that sound?
Okay. We can go with it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I want to first say good rising, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I am Tayla Andre. You are tuned into the Wake Up with Tayla Andre show, where the time of day matters not when we link up, but it's about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. Today, we have somebody I've been following for many years, somebody whose work is dynamic, irrefutable. If I can be 100% transparent, I am surprised that they have not already come for him. The amount of truth that he speaks, the amount of knowledge that he shares, the amount of work that he has done in his lifetime. Dr. Horowitz is an internationally recognized genius in the arts of science of natural healing, whose Harvard training, 4 decades of public health service. Listen, like his resume, we can have a whole hour show on his resume, but I have to say he is near and dear to my heart for his stance on vaccines, his stance on, you guys know I like my megahertz. I love listening to different sounds and tones that may not necessarily be considered music. He's a genius. I thank him for his time. I thank you for his mind. Good rising, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. How are you, Dr. Horowitz?
I'm wonderful, Tayla. Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Thank you. So I have many questions. I am considered in my world, I'm considered a conspiracy theorist. And I let it roll off of my shoulders because I don't feel like they're conspiracies when there's fact to stand behind it. So I know as a doctor you're used to speaking hours on end on one subject alone, but I'd like to touch on many different subjects within the next 45 minutes or so. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I would like to first start off with, what is a disease? And how does your body naturally fight or interact with diseases?
I thought you were going to ask me what's a conspiracy. That's probably the best place to start. Let's see if we can integrate the two. Disease. There's actually a battle ongoing inside. There's a conspiracy to take up the Holy Spirit power of love that really does all the healing constantly. The immune system. And, you're in Boston, which is my alma mater, or Harvard, Tufts University School of Dental Medicine. I had the privilege of working under some geniuses that Joan Monsanto, her husband, Leonard Monsanto, who did pioneering work in psychoneuroimmunology, so connecting the psychology, your mind, to your neurology, your brain, and the chemicals going on therein, and ultimately the effect on the immune system. So really, there's a conspiracy going on to take over your health and well-being within the total system that's really designed to perfection beyond the reaches of the wildest imaginations.
Mm-hmm.
So let's let the conspiracy antagonists, what bothers me, because I think the same thing all the time, and it's a discrediting label. They created it as a discrediting label. But you go into the law. What's law? We're really talking about law. When you talk about dis-ease, because, really it's all about law. Law is righteousness, right standingness. You're standing in the flow, the Holy Spirit power of love, or you're not. And if you're not, you're going to have karma. There's going to be bad stuff that happens. Your aches, pains, and that's the same thing with society. And so where would a prosecutor be in the justice system without having the laws that regulate conspiracies that are violating human rights, that are violating commercial interests? And that's really where the whole concept of where that people are throwing mud at you or trying to discredit you or myself for just telling the truth and making it obviously so, then they have to do that defense mechanism in order to maintain not only their profit, because the conspiracy label is a protection racket with organized crime. We're dealing with protection racketeers who make money off of disease. And that's unfortunate. They also are depopulating, literally engaged in population management. They call it today, they used to call it population control. But that got a bad label back in the 70s. And so they said, okay, we're going to change the label. We're not going to manage, we're not going to depopulate it. We're not going to call it population control. We're going to call it population management or social management. And that's what they're doing right now. So everything that you are actually engaged in, not just yourself, but everyone that's engaged in the American medical culture. The culture, yes. It's just a cult. But the media, again, I go back to Harvard. I go back to the fact that I was trained by some of the world's leading experts in the field of social science, of behavioral science, and social engineering, the media persuasion, technologies, research. That's my background. That's my area of expertise initially, where I was involved in virology. And I realized that's how the main control over what you think you know comes. So people look at conspiracy theorists, or they look at disease, they look at illness, they look at cancer from a box. The box is created by the profiteers and the protection racketeers. And unfortunately, people don't see beyond the box, because on top of that challenge, they have actual agents. There are thousands of agents in social media and networks, all propaganda. You don't get anything for free, except for maybe, people like yourself, you're dedicated activists, myself, you have to pay for the real truth that shall set us free. Ultimately, you got, for example, Fox News today. You look at the war going between CNN and Fox as outrageous. It's an incredible outrage to intelligence. But the fact of the matter is, look at the commercials. Who's making money off of that? Excuse my statement, crap. It's false news,
So I want to say really quickly that my show is centered around authenticity, unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. If you want to say fuck, you can say fuck. Like, I want the rawest, purest form of everything that you have to say, so that I want the people to wake up. That's why it's Wake Up with Tayla Andre. And sometimes you have to be vulgar for people to actually get it. We talked about disease and how conspiracy theorists and disease kind of play on words, fit together. I would like to, So you also merge a lot of biblical and science together. And I've always wondered why the Bible talks about, men and women living to 300 and 400 years old, but yet science tells us that our ancestors didn't live that long, that they, disease caused them to die at 40 and 50, and you were lucky at some points in life or some points of our timeline if you even saw 35. How did that, where does the longevity come from? How can we recreate longevity today? And why are we seeing, so many health disparities in our world?
Well, I think that the word science, it should be replaced with pseudoscience or politicized science. And it's not science. But you have evidence tampering, like you have at the CDC with an autism problem. Absolute risk. It's not science, it's crime, it's organized crime. It's evidence tampering, whether it's scientific evidence tampering or legal evidence tampering, it's the same. It's a fraud upon the consumers, the citizens, who are being damaged. And so you really, ultimately, when you consider what's taking place, it's treason. Because, you have the advancement of science, and there's no greater mecca in the United States than Boston area. That's the mecca for academia, And so I had to leave Boston. I couldn't stand it anymore. I literally had to leave there so that I could get to a place where people were actually thinking with a little bit broader perspective about what reality is all about. And I think longevity, the issue with longevity, goes back to what I mentioned briefly. There's a Holy Spirit power of love. I'm talking about frequency. I've even basically advanced the 528 love frequency that does all the healing. It's not chemistry that does the primary healing. Chemistry follows the spirituality. You're a spiritual being first. You're a physical being or a chemical being second, or maybe third. So what you really have to look at is electrogenetics. You look at the field of electrogenetics to answer the question about longevity. Everybody says, we have these terminated genes that are activated, and all of a sudden now you start to shrivel up and die. But that doesn't have to be that way if you understand your spiritual being first. And there's a lot of us, you see it every day. You see two spouses that live to 90 years of age, and they're happily married, and they're doing their thing, and one spouse dies, and the other one says, it's the end of it, I'm out of here, and within weeks they're dead.
Yeah.
How happened to my grandparents? It was like that. So this is empirical evidence that says that longevity has a lot to do with love and activism, social service. The fabric that binds humanity together is this frequency vibration that we share called love. We care for each other. Except if you're demonically possessed, like we're witnessing in politics today, like the law enforcement and the justice system, it's degenerated to the max because you're dealing with people who are literally, their mindsets are degenerated to the max. They are evil, and they don't vibe to the same loving vibration. And that's the crucial issue with the whole planet right now. Are we the people going to permit that incivility, that criminal psychopathology to impact not just our lives, but the future of America, the future of generations? And that's, I think, the calling that you serve and I serve, that we're engaged here today to deal with. We're engaged in a cult that is degenerative, demonic, grossly evil, totally unscientific. If it was scientific, it would recognize electrogenetics. It would recognize spirituality as an important part of health. And unfortunately, in America, and this was when I was at Harvard, I had a wonderful mentor who at the time was Director of Health and Education and Welfare. His name was Dr. Larry Green.
What is his name again? Say his name again.
Lawrence Green, Green, Lawrence Green. call him Larry Green, a wonderful, wonderful man, very bright. And so he and I made some discussions, and he was the first one when I argued with him about the same issue. I said, Larry, we're in Harvard School of Public Health here. We have the opportunity to educate the public about the importance of holistic medicine, holistic health, alternative therapy, spirituality, the impact of health and longevity. Why don't we? And he said, Larry, he says, you're in America. There's separation of church and state. Church deals with spirituality. Health is health science, physicality. Sorry, Len, you're in the wrong place.
You know what? I want to stay on that topic when it comes to, you talked about food. And again, I go back to Tayla's a conspiracy theorist. So when I think about history, I think about Vietnam and how Agent Orange was used to clear vegetation. And to this day, grandchildren of men that flew those planes have genetic disorders. And I think about the fact that today we have the molecules of Agent Orange within Monsanto seeds. And, again, conspiracy theorists, can you clarify what I already know in my soul, the science portion of how Monsanto is assisting in rising cases of cancer, autism, all types of health deficiencies, and how is this legal? How can a director move from the FDA to Monsanto, back to the FDA, how is this legal? How is this possible?
It's not legal. What it is, it's absolutely criminal, but that's the status quo. That's how it works. And, I was in Hawaii, in the county of Hawaii. We have a wonderful lawyer there, this county councilwoman, named Margaret Milley. And she's today either first or second in command of the Democratic Party of the state of Hawaii, enacting legislation and drafting the new legislation for the state. She personally defeated Monsanto at the county level. We were the first county, because of her efforts, to become the first county to ban open-air testing of GMOs against Monsanto. And as soon as she had that victory, they came in, they said, we're going to remove this from state, we're going to make it a state issue, not a county issue, and we're going to put it into federal court. And then it went to the Ninth Circuit. And because of the corruption that Donald Trump is talking about, 2 days ago, he came right out and said exactly what is the greatest truth that's been secreted, that nobody has until this very moment really wanted to talk about. The justice system is grossly corrupt. It's a joke. It doesn't work because it's the people who are paying in on payoffs, bribing the judges, and that's what it amounts to. So you take Monsanto, and the fact you can stonewall any case. You pay enough money to enough lawyers, and they will just continue to stonewall. And if you're an individual, you can't afford to
the fees. Yeah,
you just can't do it. And even if you're a small-time operation, you're done. And most people know that today. And so when you then supplement that fact with the special interest groups and the lobbyists and the bribery that goes on, that we, in Hawaii, I grew up in New Jersey. But before I went to Boston and lived in the Boston area for many, many years, I lived in Jersey. And my father was a politician in Jersey. And he was so good, they ultimately got rid of him. You don't survive in politics. You don't advance unless you're part of the team of corruption. Same thing in California. Jerry Brown's organization is grossly corrupt. That's why it's the first state in the nation to mandate mandatory vaccinations. How that takes place is that the big money comes in, they have backdoor deals, they basically advance their political agendas through legislation that's basically advanced by the bribed officials. And that's it. That's how it works. Now, that's not government of the people, for the people, It's literally a racketeering enterprise that is actually in medicine. It's called a Sherman Antitrust Act monopolization.
Hold on, can you say that again?
Yeah, it's Sherman Antitrust Act violation and monopolization. It's a monopoly. To the extent, let's take a look. Let's go back to where you are sitting right now as a quote conspiracy theorist. Right? In other words, you're a fringe. You're the fringe. You come up with these wild ideas, and the quote scientific world is much more accurate than Tayla. Right? Now, the public then, through the vast persuasion of the media, gets engaged in thinking that you are fringe and there's something wrong with you. But the rest of the world and the news media has got it all right. Well, guess what? That's a monopoly, isn't it?
Yes.
It now monopolize the attitude, the public state of mind, the point of view of the culture, of the social culture. And so now what you've done is you've enslaved people to what your profit-making organization is engaged in. Deceptions. It's nothing but paid political crap. And so that's really the bigger picture.
So, I love you. I just need you to know that I wish you were closer. I would love to have you as a mentor. I would love to study under you. I'm not, I don't want to become a doctor. Your knowledge is so common sense that people take it for granted. And we the people, you've said this many times, we the people, in your understanding, why do you think, in your opinion, why do you think that we the people have been suppressed in our feelings? Like, when I think about the civil rights, and not just Martin Luther King's civil rights, but the activists that fought against war, and those that just wanted peace and love, like, when I think about the civil rights and how everybody was up in arms, everyone was willing to vacate their job in order to stand for something, why are we so willing to fall? Like, why? We don't care. And where does that come from? Like, scientifically, religiously, like, where does our disregard for caring about what we can change as we the people? It's 1% of them, 99% of us, but we're still losing.
Yeah. Well, it's social engineering. It goes back to the media persuasion technologies research that we did in Boston. It goes back to how it is that I'm broadcasting from Las Vegas. Actually, we're not in Vegas. We're doing some investigation into the massacre. But if you go down the hall, you'll see there's Television City. And they have people who are standing outside of the CBS and CSI laboratories. They're literally research laboratories. It's ongoing at MGM Grand Hotel today, whereby they will give you free passes to walk in, to watch a program, to have electrodes stuck on your brain and in your physiology, to be able to, at every moment of the television program, it will register what emotional response and your pupil dilation, physiology complete reaction is to that programming. And what is the word programming? Programming is a behavioral science term. It's engineering, it's behavior modification, and it's conditioning. So this is what's taking place. The culture has been conditioned to do what the multinational corporate industrialists want because they have the money to pay for that research and development, and they do it all the time in politics as well. What do you think the answer to your question also has to do with polling? Why are the polls so important? The polls are not important to have the people figure out whether they're going to win or lose in an election. The polls are important because it maintains the thumb on the pulse of the attitudes that then the shifting of the platforms, the messages, day in and day out, the political movers and shakers want to know the feelings and attitudes that you're talking about in the American people so that they can be manipulated. So this is a con job. It's the way that the system is completely set up and operates. It's a consumer fraud that people don't realize. And here's, I think, the biggest answer. It's called susceptibility. And the more loving people are traditional, more susceptible to manipulation, coercion, enslavement, genocide, killing, death. Look at what's taking place over the centuries in Africa. The African people, if you spend time in Africa, you go into the communities, most loving, wonderful, joyful community families. They're just like dads, and they care and they love for each other. You know? And then it's being raped. Why? Because of the resources of the nations there. Right? So how do you do that? How do you get rid of the people? That's depopulation in order to manipulate the economy and to steal the resources. You do that in the same ways that I'm talking about, unfortunately, called genocide. Look at Hawaii. Hawaii is a classic example. Sherry and I are very, very good friends with a lot of the activists in the sovereignty movement in Hawaii. I don't know whether you are aware of this, but right at this very moment, Hawaii is, as a nation state, has been taken over illegally by the United States of America. America is a military occupier of Hawaii. It was never, the history is horrible. What really happened in Hawaii and the genocide that happened in Hawaii, largely because of the bankers from New England, from Boston, that went there under the guise of being missionaries and bankers, that opened up the Bank of Hawaii, that opened up the first Hawaiian bank, that they were all Freemasons. You know, they were all engaged in secret societies and making lots of money. And then they said, okay, well, what's going to get us into Hawaii is we're going to say that we're missionaries. We're going to bring Jesus to these people. And they did that. And the loving people of Hawaii, some of the most magnificently loving, open-hearted people on the planet, said, come here, you know, here's your legs, you know, aloha. And what happened? You know, you went from a population of 500,000 Native Hawaiians, Kanakas, to currently it's about 7,000 Native Hawaiians left on all of the Hawaiian islands. That's called genocide. And it's the same as what we're witnessing in the black community of America. It's the same that we're witnessing in Israel. The true good Jews, let's say, okay, the good Hebrews, are beautiful, wonderful, loving people who believe in the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not kill. And look at what's taking place also in Muslims. Come on, I mean, we're in Roxbury. I have very many wonderful brothers and sisters in the Nation of Islam. I personally know Louis Farrakhan. His health minister is a good friend of mine. The Reverend Jeremiah Wright, who was Obama's pastor for 20 years, recommends my work. So the reality is what's taking place is exactly like Reverend Jeremiah Wright states. He states, and Louis Farrakhan states, he states that the people of color are being genocidally impacted by white supremacists. And that the white supremacists are in control of the multinational corporations, the Bank of England, the Rothschild family, the Rockefeller cartel in America, the Western world that westernized the East, the whole situation currently with China, they're all infiltrated. It's not about communism versus capitalism or even socialism with Bernie Sanders. It is about globalism. It's about globalization for one world government, one world order, one world peacekeeping force. And so we, the people, are now engaged in being manipulated to move along with globalization. And the more loving that we are, the more susceptible we are to being conned. It's a con job. We bought into it. And that's what the most disturbing thing to me is, as an activist. The absolutely, far and away, the most disturbing is that people in their mindsets don't get that they have permitted themselves to become instruments of evil. We've altered their mindsets to accommodate criminal psychopathology and social administration that kills people, that degenerates the society, that makes civilization uncivilized.
So let's use what you just said there, right? I'm a parent. I'm not going to say I'm a new parent, but I have young children, 12 and 14. How do I, as a parent, and how do parents watching who are conscious, like our TV shows are teaching them about sex at 4 years old, like parents that are aware that television and movies and cartoons and clothing, and how do we as parents control something that is completely out of our control, from commercials to billboards to what's posted on the bus? So even if you don't, I personally have not had cable in over 12 years. And from that, I was able to control a little bit of what my children ingested with their eyes and their ears. But as far as when they step out into the world and their friends tell them about things that may not happen in my house, how can we as parents protect our children from the evils of the outside world when we are surrounded by it?
Well, that's a great question. It's fundamentally important with all of these we've talked about. Yes, shut the television off. Absolutely shut it off. Don't permit your children to watch it. Unfortunately, one of the people, a brilliant people that I studied with when I was at Harvard, was Gerald Lesser, who was one of the pioneers, the principal pioneer of children's television workshop, Sesame Street. So his mission was wonderful. And my master's degree program was heavily involved in educating children, giving them the keys that they would become self-motivated and self-reinforcing agents for their own healthier, happier, more successful human development. Then I had another wonderful expert who I trained under. His name is Ron Slaby, S-L-A-B-Y. Ron did the principal pioneering research in aggression in children's television. And he predicted what we're witnessing. He said if you continue to allow these aggressive video gaming and television programming to continue, you're going to have increased militarization and aggression in society. Their works, largely, were manipulated and censored to give us what we have today, a media that is degenerative, absolutely, socially, morally, ethically degenerative. And so that's what now the legislature, instead of, for example, making this a key political issue, you have President Trump stating the fact, thank you, for the first time, that the justice system is a complete joke. But how about the media? He's telling you about the fake news. Unfortunately, I don't think Donald Trump is bright enough to realize that it's all social engineering programming across the board, whether they like Trump or not. It's all a matter of literally social engineering mind control. And that you've got to turn that off in order to have really a clean slate to begin to rear a child, developmentally benefit a child that is growing and has some wonderful inspiration, aspirations, and a calling for information and intelligence. And unfortunately, look at even the term today, intelligence. Where is intelligence centralized in America? secretly in the Central Intelligence Agency. That does what? Funds ISIS, establishes for the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Nationalists. Just all this is coming out in the news now. All the pedophilia that's involved, the degeneration in the morals of society is the status quo. This is what goes on. This is how it works. And now we expect, as the voters, as we the people, we expect to have a blessing versus a curse come out of that. You know, it's like you say, it's common sense. So the first thing is you have to realize that the media is a programming technology.
Yes.
You've got to shut it off. If you want to have a really intelligent, educated child, you've got to take that child personally. Become a parent who cares, who's involved, who educates the child, who takes the time. Number one, to recognize what are the unique gifts. What are the unique gifts of each of those children? They have unique DNA. Don't you think that they have a certain unique calling on their lives? Don't they have a unique energy, frequency, resonance that uplifts them and pleases them and inspires them to do great things for others and other families and children and community? Of course they do.
Okay, so I would like to take what you just said, and so I went to Ethiopia. I was in Addis Ababa, and I have to tell you, I totally agree. Africans as a whole are nothing but love. It was so peaceful. Somebody could be completely dead broke, not own anything, but exude so much love to a complete stranger. In African cultures, when a child is born, they see, like, what does that child like? What does that child enjoy? That is how we raise that child. We raise that child to what that child's strengths are, regardless of what the strength is. And I always wondered, I'm also an educational advocate. Education is the biggest thing in my life, but I always wondered why our current system doesn't tailor our children that way. Like, we don't teach our children, like, oh, they're really good with their hands. Let's start teaching them a trade at 6. Like, let's start teaching them about electronics. Let's start teaching them about computers. Like, they're really good with their hands. Let's start working with them. Or my child's really good in writing and auditory and stories. Let's focus on that at 6. And by the time they're 16, they have 10 years worth of training in whatever it is that they're already naturally good at. Do you foresee, as an educator, the United States ever educating our children in this way?
We need a revolution, a big-time revolution. We really have got to oust all of the corruption. And it's steep. It's from top to bottom. It's got to start in the justice system where the rubber meets the road in this corruption is the justice system. And it's that way, I mentioned briefly, because you have divine law. Like, let's talk about, like you just did. A child is divinely inspired and gifted. That's by frequency resonance. It's administered musically, mathematically. We know that. And to be happy, they've got to be in harmony with their own divinity and their own progress in terms of expressing their calling and fulfilling their destiny in that field. So that's the law of the universe. Mm-hmm. Now you take that child and you put them into the culture that we have seen degenerate to the level that it has, especially Chicago is a good example of that now. The reality there is horrific in the ghetto. And the reality now, where is the law enforcement? They're killing people. They're not protecting people. And yet you have some good officers, wonderful, thank goodness for good officers. But you have the good officers who are being killed because they're not playing along
by the rule, yeah.
And so it is a system-wide corruption where the rubber meets the road. Is you've got to totally wipe out and start over again with the judicial system. And whether that, I think what Trump is at least brought to discussion is the fact that we need to put into government the constitutionalists. Because the Constitution, if you read it, we have all the laws. The laws are fantastic. You start with the Bible, that's the law. You start with the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not kill. A simple law. Hey, that's cool, I can take it. But now, where the rubber meets the road is what happens when XYZ on the streets happen, and now you have a victim of crime. Now, where does that go? It goes to these lawyers and the whole legal system. It's horrible. It's just horrible. And it's not civil. It's all criminal. It's all biased. It's all dehumanizing. You don't get to vote in a court unless you meet certain tests. They call it standing. You have to have standing to bring your case. And you can't bring it in many cases. This is one of the situations we're dealing with for our wonderful spiritual ministry in Hawaii. We've been precluded from owning property, holding our property. Bob in Hawaii has literally stolen our ministry estate and has precluded us from actually going into a court of law and saying, we have standing to defend our property. He said, no, you don't. You don't get a trial. The Bob is going to take the property. And the Bob in this particular case happens to be CIA and agents working for Central Intelligence, who we know, definitively so. Engaged in America's #1 drug mob. That's what Hawaii is. It's the gateway to opium from the east, methamphetamine from Mexico, the opioids, heroin also, marijuana trade, and the latest scourge on America, on the youth, is called ayahuasca, which is like a new LSD. They call it the God molecule. The God molecule. Take this pill or take this tea, drink this tea, and you're going to see God, and it's going to heal you. It's the new community medicine.
That sounds like mushrooms, though. I heard that about mushrooms.
Yeah, that's right. Well, mushrooms, at least, you had a Native American culture that was behind it. This particular culture goes from Peru. It comes from out of Peru, a religious organization down there in Peru. And I've spoken with several of their shamans. They're outraged with the Central Intelligence Agency, and in Hawaii, a lawyer named Paul J. Sulla, S-U-L-L-A Jr., is the chief supplier to the mainland U.S. in gross violation of the Supreme Court's ruling that says, okay, even though we can't regulate this because it's a religion, we can regulate where your stuff comes from. You can't produce it legally in the United States. If you're going to recommend it, you have to bring it in from Peru. But that's not what they're doing in Hawaii. They created this whole organization operating under the corruption of the judicial system, the Justice Department. The law enforcers are paid off. They're all bribed. And so what's happening now in urban America is you have a huge explosion of these parties journeying. They're journeying. You drink your tea and you lay out. You're supposed to be under a shaman's care in the Peruvian Amazonian jungle, but you're not. You're engaged in a cult that has taken on whatever was sacred about that particular religion, and now you basically have a profiteering of humanity's suffering, drug enterprise. And when I say suffering, all of the youth that are engaged in this, why are they suffering? Why do they lack God? Why do they feel the need to turn on with particular psychotropic drugs in order to discover themselves or God? It's because the culture in which they've been reared, they've been miseducated, educated into ignorance. They're dumbed down, spiritually suppressed. And so that's the sickness. That's what's caused the sickness of society. Certainly it's a huge impact. And then again, it's ridiculous. You don't give. As a behavioral science expert, I can tell you this. You don't give mixed messages and expect any good to come out of it. Mixed message. Here it is. Don't do drugs. Drugs are bad. But then you look at television, the mainstream news, media constantly. Take this drug, 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 take this drug for everything. And then on top of that, you want to ask yourself, why is it that they tell you in a 60-second commercial, they spend maybe 30 seconds of that 60-second commercial telling you all the problems that could be resulting from it? Hello, social engineering. They're creating a sick, diseased culture. It's socially engineering people to accept cancer as normal.
Okay, so talking about drugs, I would like to, again, conspiracy theorist, I am starting to believe that this new wave of let's legalize drugs, come to the dispensary, get your weed, I'm starting to believe, based on what I'm seeing in my own community, the weed is not the same weed my mother smoked. The weed is not the same weed I tried when I was in high school. Like, this is there's 15,000 strands of weed. All of them do different things. And then they're genetically engineered. And I feel like when you go to the dispensary and you get the weed from the dispensary, the principles or whatever is in that product is not weed, Dr. Horowitz. And I'm trying to ask, do you think that there's a possibility that the weed is being engineered to physically, emotionally, and psychologically alter the mindset of the general public, because everybody smokes weed, versus if people are growing it from home, using their own special chemicals, knowing what's in it? Do you think there is a difference chemically in that weed that can alter someone's state?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you completely. And I think it is one thing to grow yourself. There's a wonderful book, a series of books by a woman by the name of Anastasia in Russia. She's a naturalist, and she recommends taking the seeds of whatever you want to plant, putting it in your mouth, touching it with your saliva, giving it a spiritual blessing and a prayer at that time, where the seed itself is all genetic material. It absorbs your own DNA and grows you personally. And yes, that's very different from what we're looking at in marijuana dispensaries. In my opinion, I haven't done a significant amount of research on this, so just take it as an opinion. I believe that the social experiment that was ongoing in Amsterdam, if you look at Amsterdam experiment, which has been winding up now, where they tested widespread distribution and sales of marijuana, and now it's changing. The whole social, political, and governmental operations in Amsterdam, as we in the West, roll out the freer, easier access to marijuana. They're getting stricter in Amsterdam. And what I'm looking at here, the highest probability, the reason why we're suddenly seeing at this time an increase of the dispensaries, of the commerce, the enterprise in marijuana, is to do exactly what you're saying. You've got to put civilization in a stupor to cope with the criminality and the degeneration of society that those who are in control of the drug industry Big Pharma. That's who really is in control. I mean, we witnessed it and watched it with the dispensary selection process in Hawaii. And man, it is so political. It's so money driven, and it's not really what you and I would consider grounded in ethics and morals and values that could be used as an herb for medicinal benefits exclusively. You know, it's an enterprise now, and I think that the reason why we are witnessing now the experiment of Amsterdam coming to America is because Big Pharma knows that to continue to degenerate society, you've got to psychotropically impact humanity. You've got to literally dump people down, keep people in a fog, keep people disconnected. And that's really what it is when you get high. You're not connected to reality. You do it for escapism. You know, you do it for rest and relaxation or for entertainment. You don't do it to sit down and deal with the hard issues facing society or your family. You know, and so it's a form of escapism. What are we escaping from? We're escaping from the people who are making the money from marijuana. You know, we're really, literally, ultimately, who's controlling the genetic engineering of the various substances that we're consuming? You know, who's Monsanto? Who's Sargento? Who's Bayer Corporation? What are their links to the Nazis? What are their links to history over and over again of genocide? That's who's really in control. So unless we wake up to that reality, we are subject to the harshest of consequences because we're just, you know, we're off in a stupor. We're in the ozone about it. Oh, don't just smoke this joint, you'll feel better. You know, so that's my opinion on it.
I'd like to move to, you brought up Monsanto, which I feel extremely strong about. I lived in Birmingham, Alabama for some time, and they're in Jefferson County. They were kicked out of Jefferson County and had to pay Jefferson County residents for damages for the land and to health disparities that they had as well. So as far as Monsanto is concerned and food is concerned, I'd like to ask you a few questions regarding cloned meat. Is that something that we should be alarmed with? Is it okay that we eat cloned salmon? That's the thing now, cloned salmon. This whole vegan boom, is this something that we should be taking into consideration? And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dr. Sebi, but Dr. Sebi was a holistic doctor who fought against I forgot the district that he won his case in, but they told him that you can't claim you can heal cancer. You can't claim you can heal AIDS. Those are incurable. And with empirical evidence, he shut them down. I have healed cancer. I have healed AIDS. I have healed the untreatable, the unhealable diseases. And I believe they ultimately killed him for it, but he talks about alkaline foods. And when it comes to food and when it comes to water, I personally have like a water purifier for our drinking water, but our shower water, our teeth water, our boiling water still has fluoride and hormone chemicals and pharmaceuticals. And how do we live a life? What do we eat? What do we drink? What are we supposed to ingest when there is nothing around us that is pure anymore? And then, again, I live in Roxbury, Massachusetts. Granted, we're being gentrified, but 50% of Bostonians make under $35,000 a year. With that being said, a Whole Foods is not an option. So what options do we have?
Yeah, that's a huge problem. That's where it's come to right now. The reality is that you can't afford to live healthy anymore. You can't have access anymore to fresh water, fresh food. It's horrible. It's just horrible. Unfortunately, in Massachusetts, also you've got harsh winters. You've got to have some sort of vegetable garden to grow your own. I think Russia has done, my understanding, the best model for having the most people actually growing their own, being independently farming. And that is very, very important. I mean, it's very, very important. The water situation is crucial. One of the basic physiological needs, you need air. Look at the air, it's polluted. You've got to have water, but it's polluted. Your safety and shelter needs are now being degenerated by the crime and the crime that the law enforcement arm, as we mentioned, are steeping. So you're under stress and distress, and you talk about water being so vital. The infectious diseases, by the way, are more susceptible to infectious diseases when you're distressed, when your system is acidified by stress. Then you become really your body becomes a battleground for infectious diseases. And so that's really what's unfortunately the risk to society today, having degenerated the environment to the extent that has gone on. We are faced with these critical questions. And years ago when I did the book Healing Codes from the Biological Apocalypse, this is where I end the book. I end the book stating that unless you make your relationship right with the Creator, you are nowhere. You've got to realize that when all is said and done, the power of the Holy Spirit, the power of love that is the essence of spirituality, is the final frontier and final salvation. If anything is going to save us, it's going to be that power of love, that power that literally rejuvenates us and restores us and heals us. And you don't need to have a lot, but you do need to have some basics, such as good pure drinking water. So my recommendation is that people learn more about water, about alkalizing water. I've spent a lot of time educating the public. As a matter of fact, people don't realize, I'm kind of old, you can see that from my gray hair, but the fact is that about 20 years ago, I published with Jim Karnstad an audio package called Survival Water, pH, and Oxygen. Before anybody knew anything really about alkalinity, Jim Karnstad was telling people about the power of alkalinity. And so I basically published that material, and because of our work, now you see, for example, you see Essentia, 9.5 pH medicinal water, but again, $3.50 per liter.
Yeah.
Who can afford that?
Yeah.
On a fixed income. So you've got to be able to produce your own pure drinking water that's alkalized to about 8 to 8.5 pH. 80% of the water that we should be drinking. I could go into a whole lecture about water. Basically, you want to drink about 80% of the water that you're drinking is pH 8 or so, adjusted alkalized drinking water. You want 20% structured water. Structured water helps the DNA actually stay alive as the antenna to that little spirit power of love that's flowing. There's different types of water. Distilled water, for example, is dead. It's dead. There's no minerals in it. Minerals in it vibrate. It has life. It has a spiritual resonance and energy in it. But if it's being distilled, it's dead. So you've got to bring life to it. You've got to rejuvenate it. And how do you do that? Well, a number of ways. There are multiple ways. With prayer, hands-on kneeling in prayer, to play good music to it. You actually play 528 music to water, and you can structure it that way. Dr. Emoto was a colleague of mine, good friend of mine.
Are you serious?
Yes. I was Dr. Emoto's leading science advocate. Matter of fact, if we were in Hawaii now, I'd pull from my shelf the first autographed copy of Dr. Emoto's first book on his first night in the United States. I have his first autographed copy, his first book, and his first night in the United States.
So really quickly, for those who do not know, there's a movie called What the Bleep Do We Know? It's a documentary, and briefly they talk about the research that was done on molecules of water. And there's some molecules of water that he looked under a microscope and he would label it bad or evil or like Hitler, and it would come out like looking distorted, looking like mud water, looking like pond water, and then there were waters that were labeled blessed, I love you, water touched by a child, water touched by the Pope, and it looked like crystallized snowflakes, and it was just, you could see the difference of the molecules of water simply by the words or the words you say or the words written or even the people that touch the water. And that's so important because from what I understand, I could be wrong, we as humans are made up as 70% of water. So if this little cup of water is altered simply by the words spoken, what do you think you're doing to yourself by speaking negative words, thinking negative thoughts, feeling negative about yourself? How, if you were to draw the water out of you, what would that water look like? I'm sorry for interrupting, though.
No, it's wonderful. That's exactly right. Yeah, we were, of course, Dr. Emoto, he was with us for his last birthday dinner. He passed away about a year and a half ago. We were with him in Hawaii for his last birthday dinner. And that was his message to the world. And his message is exactly like Jesus' message. Jesus said, you won't be judged by every word that comes out of your mouth, that even reflects the love in your heart and the evil that dwells therein. And based on Dr. Emoto's research, that judgment happens instantaneously in your own body. You're poisoning your own body, like you're just saying, with your negativity. And so that's it's profound. My work and subsequent to Dr. Emoto's collaborations have given us the idea that water is liquid God. It's conscious. It responds to you particularly. It has messages for you particularly. It's 80% of your body. You said 70, somewhere between 70 and 80% of your Holy Spirit-filled temple is liquid God or goddess. So basically, that's the reality. And so now you start to engage that truth in the system of hypocrisy that we've been talking about, and you realize we're shattering the medical paradigm. We're not transforming the medical paradigm. We're shattering it with the understanding of spirituality and the impact of resonance, frequency, and harmony, of positive attitudes, and the whole psycho-neuro-immunology. The mediator is the water in the body. It's moving. The body's moving. We're fluid. We're flowing. So you're either in the flow or you're out of sync with harmony. And that's really water is, in my opinion, it's liquid God. It's magnificent. And I think that people take it completely for granted. And I think that every time we have water, we should be praying, giving thanks for the water. And actually, when you actually do that, give it also a blessing to alkalinize it. I've been in Boston in conferences where they take tap water, they put it out for the audience, and now you're in the audience and you've got a a jug of a picture of poisonous water that you're supposed to now be alert to listen to the lectures. But I can tell you that I've taken with colleagues, using what I'm telling you now, we take prayer, our hands, we put our hands on top of the jar of water, and it changes the taste. You can actually taste the difference. You're changing the structuring of the water by adding the frequency resonant energy of positive attitudes, positive things, just like Dr. Leonard talked about.
Awesome. So I have a thousand more questions. I don't want to keep you, but I do want to keep you. You talked about, really quickly, so we talked about food and we talked about water. And one of the other things that you mentioned was the air that we breathe. I cannot prove, I don't think there's many people out there that can prove, but what are chemtrails and contrails, and is it possible or is there proof that the air is being polluted? I remember maybe about 10, 15 years ago, I was watching a program on Discovery Channel, and they were talking about, the beginning aspects of global warming, and in order to save our planet, we have to create fake clouds. I know that in Beijing during the Olympics, they were able to control the weather like that, and had the ability to clear up a rainy day into... I'm lying. They were able to create snow for the winter portion of the snow portion of the Olympics. With that, in the movie that just came out, Megastorm, Geostorm, are chemtrails real? Is a megastorm or geostorm possible? And is the weather really being controlled?
Absolutely, yes. I think one of the most shocking pieces of evidence of that is in the Houston flooding. Remember Houston a couple months back, horrible flooding? Well, they had actually published, the government had published on the government's website that it had been seeding the clouds to increase rain in the Houston area. This was literally posted 2 days before the floods. Yeah, so that's just one piece of evidence. I can tell you that I wrote, first of all, the book, Death in the Air, Globalism, Terrorism, and Toxic Warfare. Think of its title. It came out 3 months before 9/11. Death in the Air, Globalism, Terrorism, and Toxic Warfare. Nobody was talking about anything like that before 9/11. This was 3 months in June of 2001, I came out with that book, and there's a whole section dealing with chemtrails, absolutely, certainly, the aluminum, the barium, the way in which the alleged attenuation of the solar radiation, because of supposedly global warming, there's too much solar radiation coming down straight Earth now, and so they plan to lay out aluminum clouds. And that's what chemtrails have a high amount of, is aluminum and barium and other things. During that period of time, I went to where any good researcher would go, in medical libraries and scientific libraries, to the Patel Memorial Institutes. They have a whole series, Patel Memorial Institute in Ohio. They published a huge series of weather modification periodicals and books. And so when you start to review those, every aspect of weather control has been studied. And that technology, because it's so important for military, you bet massive amounts of money and finance the Patel Memorial Institute's research and development significantly. So all of the technology for weather modification is certainly there. Science is absolutely there. The fact that the media doesn't talk about it is evidence tell you that that's so. And I'll give you a citation. All you have to do is research, do a Google Scholar research on Judge Brandeis. Judge Brandeis, from Brandeis University in Boston, right? Judge Brandeis put in a search, silence as evidence. Silence as evidence of a most persuasive character. That's a quote from Judge Brandeis of the Supreme Court of the United States, talking about when you don't speak up and when you don't acknowledge something that's right there, obviously so, it would persuade a judge or a jury to know that you're a criminal. You've got the problem. If you're going to be made inside, well, what's the media doing today with chemtrails?
What is the media doing today with everything?
Everything. Exactly. And in my opinion, and I know Sherry Kaner's a great investigative journalist, agrees with me, the series of horrific hurricanes that we witnessed this year.
Yeah.
There had to, in my opinion, have been something unnatural about that. Because although they made it look so natural, they just happened to develop, they just go right down that corner, that same corner, here's where it's coming again. And the devastation, it did not feel natural. There was something extraordinary, unusual about it. And, the fact that they track hurricanes as they do now better than ever, so that they supposedly can predict better than ever, well, that's wonderful. But that doesn't change the technology underlying, for example, in the Pacific Ocean, there's about a 200 to 300-mile area that prompts El Nino. And that years ago, when we wrote the book, the Death in the Air book, we showed you Project Park and its sister organization in Europe called IceCap, which was a scatter radiation where you would beam, let's say, from Alaska. And this is my colleague, a wonderful colleague of mine, Nick Begich, who with J.D. Manning wrote Angels Don't Play This Harp. And they talked about the fact that there's the antenna system up in Alaska that radiates radiation to the highest level of the atmosphere, the belt ionosphere, and it bounces off the ionosphere and goes wherever they want it pointed. So if they want a 200-mile radius in the Pacific Ocean to be increased 4 or 5 degrees, that's easy. All they have to do is shift the air antenna just slightly and get it to zap that section of the ocean. And so that's what they do, and that changes the entire jet stream over America. So all of this, if you really were a scientist, if you really wanted to do your due diligence, pick up the Patel Memorial Institute series of weather modification periodicals.
I said this before. Allow me to say it again. You are absolutely amazing. I love you so much. You touched briefly on vaccines, but I want to ask you specifically about autism in vaccines. One of the things that we are seeing more than ever is autism, and back when I was growing up, no one had ADHD. No one had autism. Like, there weren't special classes for those. And so my question is, in your opinion, how are vaccines creating medical conditions, and are those medical conditions, or do those medical conditions include autism, ADHD, adults having ADD? Like, when I was a kid, it was take your ass outside. So I don't know what it is now or why we have seen these levels, but they have increased in the last 30 years, and I'd love to know your opinion about that.
Well, have you seen the movie Facts yet?
I have. I don't think everybody has, but I have.
Okay, well, the movie Facts is extremely important to do that. And then once you view the movie Facts, then you've got to watch the movie Unvaxxed, a documentary from Robert De Niro. Have you seen that movie yet?
I have not.
Okay. Well, that's my film. And I'm very thankful that I am the recipient of a great honor of several actual awards. Two of them actually, I won Best Film 2016 in London and Geneva competitions in the World International Film Festival for my film Unvaxxed, the documentary for Robert De Niro. You might recall that Robert De Niro pulled the movie Vaxxed from showing at the Tribeca Film Festival, which is one of America's premier film festivals. But because of my relationship with Dr. Andrew Wakefield, Dr. Wakefield, who was the co-producer of the film Vaxxed, and because of Sherry Kane's great work, we were able to actually find out how Robert De Niro was pressured and who pressured him to pull the film. So our film is extraordinary because it goes into the background of counterintelligence and the big pharma agents that are literally keeping in place the fraud that vaccines are safe and effective and concealing the evidence that it's devastating, that the autistic spectrum disorder, plus all the autoimmune diseases, plus all the new cancers, they all came out of the vaccine industry. So that's in my film called Unvaxxed, a commentary from Robert De Niro, and it's really a wonderful film, extremely enlightening. And the answer to your question is, how are the vaccines doing this? And again, this goes back to evidence of a most persuasive character. When you have gross censorship, massive silence in the media, not covering these crucial public health issues, you have evidence of criminal complicity with the pharmaceutical industry. And that's essentially what you have to know is when you get injected with bacteria, virus, fungus, yeast, chicken embryo, bovine fetal serum, empty kidney tissues, with smallpox vaccine, it's cow pus. When you take all this crap and you inject it directly into a human body under the guise of immunization, in other words, God didn't know how to protect you. Your own body's immune system, who would believe in that nonsense? You know, we in science, we know better that you've got to get injected with cow pus or foreign DNA from all these sources. And then let's add not just that, let's skip iron foods, which is good. But we're going to add now the stabilizers and sterilizers. Mercury, aluminum, formaldehyde, formalin, MSG, polysorbate 80, tween, spermicides. In the women, particularly in African American women, approximately 30% in urban America are sterile. How did they get sterile? Well, you listen to the propagandists or the white supremacists, and they say all these people live in squalor, they don't eat good, they don't eat right, and so they get sterile. Hogwash. The first thing you learn in medicine and in embryology is that the fetus will absorb from the mother all of the minerals. They don't take them right out of the bones of the woman in order for the fetus to be born and the child to thrive. The woman might die in childbirth, but the nutritional deficiencies are not the cause of sterility. Hello?
So I never understood that. So I have absolutely no scientific background at all. And I was unaware Because that's what you're told in health class. That's what you're told when, as a black woman who's been pregnant twice, I have 2 kids. That's what I was told, that whatever you eat affects your child. And if you don't, I was causing harm to my child because I wasn't eating. And I was just like, I'm eating what I'm supposed to be eating. And they still tell me that I'm doing harm to my child. And you're telling me that that was a lie within itself, because regardless of my diet, my child would have taken all my nutrients anyways.
Well, there's some truth. You've got to look at law again. Go back to law. Omissions and misrepresentations to induce a person to do something they wouldn't normally do if they had a full picture of the truth. That's fraud in law. So that generally speaking, yes, you want to give the public a good message that says, what you eat is important for child development, healthy child development. That's fine. But to add all this hogwash as an explanation for why 30% of urban American black women are sterile, these are the conversations that I have with Minister Farrakhan's health minister, Ali Mohammed, in Washington, D.C. These are the issues that we are seriously facing, and it's called genocide. Genocide. How do you conduct genocide? Well, you go back to World War II. You go back to Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister for the Third Reich. They claim there that Jews were the enemy, that they were dogs. Black people were dogs. They were inferior. This is eugenics. Where did that start? The racial hygiene. It started in New York, Long Island, Cold Spring Harbor Labs, the eugenics movement, Margaret Stanger. These are the pioneers of racial hygiene. And today, it's the same. It's ongoing. You have, in fact, again, I told you I was in Las Vegas at MGM. You walk in MGM right now, and you go through the halls in the various tunnels that they've got connected to the casino, and the escalators are produced by Thyssen Krupp. What? Are you kidding me? Fritz Thyssen was IG Farben, Germany's leading industrial organization, chief architect and director, controlling Auschwitz with the Rockefeller Standard Oil Company. And Krupp was the company that made the airplanes for the Luftwaffe, for the German Air Force. So this is literally what we're looking at. Man, you've got to get real. Nazi Germany didn't lose the war. It just came out, what was it, 2 days ago when the Kennedy files just came out, the assassination files, and we learned from there that Hitler didn't die. They didn't get Hitler. Well, alone, we knew that already. We had suspected that a long time ago. We had looked at some evidence that spoke to that. Now we've got the proof. It was all a lie. Everything that we've been told is a complete lie. And so when you look at everything that you're taught, let's say you're taught what you just said by a health educator, a community advocate that goes out to the community from Public Health Services, Centers for Disease Control gets a grant, and then they send out community activists or advocates into the community to try to educate poor working mothers how to bring up a healthy child. These people, especially from the Boston area, academia, you don't get this information.
No.
And you don't realize then that you're an agent for genocide. You're delivering omissions and misrepresentations of the facts to defraud the public into believing that you're to blame. They're blaming the victims. This is what they do over and over and over again. They blame the victims, blame the overpopulation, too many people driving cars. Oh, we need to reduce the population. Let's blame the victims. Bill Gates is great at doing that. He says, oh, your televisions are wonderful. wonderful televisions. We need to have more televisions everywhere. Television is a great thing. He lectures at the TED conference. And vaccines, he loves vaccines. They're wonderful because they're going to reduce the population by 15%. He tells you right out in your face.
You've read my mind, because that was actually the next question. Was Bill and Melinda Gates have all of this money that they've been giving to the black community, and they've been in Africa trying to help, vaccinate people, and I'm wondering, like, how do we fall for the okie doke, Dr. Horowitz? Like, how are we just so content with Bill Gates sterilizing people and not murdering people, but he might as well be labeled a murderer. Like, how on earth does he?
Absolutely, he should be tried and he should be executed for genocide.
But how? Okay, I want to say, how does our government allow that? But aside from the government, how do we, the people, allow that, and how do we stop it?
Okay, look, who's controlling the government right now? You're witnessing what's taking place. There's a battle ongoing between the Trump administration and the deep state. Deep state is essentially the Bush cartel, the Rothschild, the old money, the Rockefellers, the banking cartel, J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs. That's the Rockefeller Nouveau Riche. The old money's the old money in Europe. Who made the money during World War II? The whole issue was basically they want to develop a new world order. It was Hitler called the same thing that they called globalization. It was called New Order by Hitler. And who funded Hitler's rise to power? The same parties. Rockefeller Standard Oil Company was a traitor to the United States. Even federal justice said they were married partners to IG Farben. That was Big Pharma.
But we have the Rockefeller Center, and he gives to the Rockefeller Foundation recently gave to Boston, Massachusetts, to study resiliency and how to create a diverse and understanding society of white Americans to accept blacks. Like, I think it was like $1 million he just gave to Boston to study how Boston can become a resilient city and that we all work together. Like, what's the smoke screen behind that?
Yeah, well, I think that you're right on the money here. And the money that Bill Gates has from Microsoft, and by the way, MS is Microsoft and MSNBC. So that network is Bill Gates's. And then where did Bill Gates get his money from? IBM. IBM financed the initial, and then who is IBM? You remember that the Holocaust victims were tattooed on their arms.
IBM.
Those numbers were all matching the punch cards that IBM administered for the Nazis. Okay, so again, when you don't learn history repeats. When you don't learn because of historic revisionism, such as Hitler supposedly having died, in his bunker, false, that the Nazis literally survived and thrived, and you have the Jew named Kissinger, who is the leading Nazi hunter who brought Project Paperclip 5,000 of Hitler's finest Nazi scientists to America and to work with American industry and American military, including Von Braun in the V-2 missile project, and Eric Traub, who was the top biological weapons developer for Hitler. When you take now that history and you bury it, you secret it, it's disgusting. What you have is genocide. And to the extent that you're silent about it, and this is like, my colleagues who I know personally, who are engaged in public health. I'll give you one example. Deepak Chopra, for example. I know him personally. He knows me personally. We don't get along too well. Why? Because the mainstream media adores Deepak. God bless him, that's terrific. He's got some great things to say. But why did they allow him? Why did they permit Deepak Chopra to be as successful as he is? Because he doesn't mention a word about the genocide that he knows is ongoing. And this makes him complicit in the crime. In fact, look up 42 USC 1986.
14 USC?
42 USC 1986. And I hold Deepak Chopra, and I hold the other experts in medicine who are engaged in spirituality and the development supposedly of an enlightened population. I hold them personally accountable for a violation of their duty to prevent what they've neglected. That law, 42 U.S.C. 1986, is called duty to prevent or neglect the duty to prevent. I think I lost you.
No, I'm here.
So, at any rate, that deals with the knowledge that if you see a brother or sister about to be damaged or harmed, and you have the information and the capability to help them not be harmed, if you don't act, you are as guilty as those who have damaged them. And that's the same in the body. It's the same concept. If you're a whistleblower and you see a situation developing and you don't speak up and you don't alert everyone to the problems, you are held accountable by God. And so, in my opinion, people such as Deepak Chopra are accountable under the same laws of the universe. I love many things that he says. He talks about wonderful things. But the reality is, he and I have had meetings of the mind where he ain't gonna go where I'm going. It's just not his thing. He doesn't want to do it, but he doesn't realize it. He doesn't want to admit. He's in denial about the fact that given his success, he has far more capability of stopping the genocide than Dr. Leonard Horowitz does. So it's just like it's a personal issue for me, but it's also a social issue. It's a cultural issue.
And I love it when you say that. I love it when you emphasize cult. Sure, because I think sometimes we forget the root word, and again, forgetting history. Lord have mercy. 2 more questions. Do you have time for 2 more?
I think we're okay with the Bill Gates stuff. I think that, in my opinion, when you start to get into law and prosecution, and when the prosecutors have to examine the evidence to bring a case, I think that's potentially, if we can get enough of the justices that were really honest and not willing to go along with the crime, the organized crime and the racketeering, I think that is potentially where we can have the best impact. And at that point, then, what I'm saying, these kinds of issues of silence, of the media's silence over issues, of our esteemed colleagues in health science, Centers for Disease Control, public health, and the media, they're guilty. They're complicit in, it's aiding and abetting by willful blindness. Aiding and abetting by willful blindness. The organized crime of genocide. That's the issue. And until we start to speak about it and raise it as an issue in courts of law, you and I, we the people, will continue to be degenerated and subject to these people that are committing beyond mass murder. It's treasonous. It's absolutely treasonous.
And I totally agree. I absolutely totally agree. My second to last question has to do with the 538 hertz. Is that correct? Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, 528.
Okay, 528. So, 528, I've seen, my pronunciation could be correct, could be incorrect. Is it Sofigio?
Yeah, solfeggio.
Solfeggio. So I listened to a range of solfeggios from the 528 to the 845s and the 922s. What exactly does each one do? And how can what does each frequency do? What does it mean as far as the frequencies as a whole, and how can I use them to heal myself? How can I use them to heal my community? And then I'll stop there.
I don't have your video anymore. Are you still on video?
Yeah, so I'm dealing with my own video issues right now, but I can still hear you and I can still see you.
Okay. We could spend a full day talking about, answering the question about what the solfeggio notes are, what their specific effects are. Suffice it to say that 528 is pure total love. It's universal healing. And so the best resource that I can give everyone is 528revolution.com. 528revolution.com. I would highly recommend listening to the music on 528radio.com. I would recommend if you're a recording artist or just somebody who loves music and has a big music library, to think about transposing or recording, producing music using our mastering equipment. It's for free at 528records.com. And so those are practical applications. You've got 528revolution.com, where we can give you the educational background on the question that you've asked, the frequencies. There's also some great articles on the 528records.com website under media and under press. You'll see there's articles written, for example, what you should know, and I would highly encourage people to recognize it. This whole field has been infiltrated by Central Intelligence agents, counterintelligence propagandists that don't want you to know the healing power of love. If you knew the power of love that could be used to heal people, and how simple frequencies of energy, of sound energy, and music could be made medicinal by transposing it into the 528 Hz frequency. Again, it's paradigm shattering in medicine. Paradigm shattering. And so suddenly now you see Big Pharma would have a huge multi-trillion-dollar, problem on their hands. And so what they've done is they've hired organizations such as Jamie Butler's CIA agents that promote 432 frequency as an alternative to 528. That doesn't bother me. They would simply promote 432 because it's a harmonic of 528. What they do is say, oh, Dr. Horowitz is a con artist, and 528 is not love, it's satanic. And you've got all these jerks out there like trolls on the internet suddenly now disparaging me and the 528 month revolution. And so that's basically what I'm having to deal with, and Sherry Kane is having to deal with as the producer of 528records.com. We have a revolution ongoing in music and medicine, and it's called the 528 month revolution. And the different frequencies have different impacts, as you mentioned. The heart, where the healing is, where the love is in 528. And there's so many beautiful revelations and scientific support for what I just said that you'll have to study. The best book to get is the book of 528, Prosperity Key of Love. That's the title. Book of 528, Prosperity Key of Love. And we feel for people who are, today are Christian or Muslim, who are engaged in monotheism. There's a prophecy in the Bible, in the Old Testament and the New Testament, that also speaks to the same or similar prophecies in every single Aboriginal or Native culture that is, all the prophets or the sages over the centuries, over the millennia, has said that in the end times, there shall be something miraculous that takes place that opens people's hearts. The Bible parts are Isaiah 22 and Revelation 3:6 through 8. That deals with a king. That's a musical note. A king of the house of David that opens the doors that no man can open. Closes doors that no man can close. What are the doors that no man can open or close? You're talking about spiritual portals. And what greater, finer, more medicinal spiritual portal than the heart? Opening up people's hearts with love. And basically be able to have that communion, community, communication, that interaction between we the people. And then ultimately that connection to the higher source of our power, that Holy Spirit power of love. That communion, divine. That's really what the 528Hz revolution is about. And so at the same time where Sherry and I have been heavily involved as activists, they work 18 hours a day or 7 days a week to bring truth to light to hopefully save another child or some lives. We also bring about what the global solution is. And the global solution is the same as it's always been. We've got to recognize what Jesus talked about, love being the eternal source of sustenance, and just like Rumi from the Muslim world, that's over and over again preached the magnificent power of love that shall set us free. That's really where we are today, and I think that's where we're going into the future. And I don't believe that as bad as it is, and as bad as it's going to get, and I do believe that there's a high probability we're going to see a massive plague, that they're already warned us, they already have all the biologicals in place, they're now creating the social political climate and the war climate that would facilitate immune suppression, that a releasing of the H5N1 or H1N1 supergerm that is going to totally wreak havoc like Ebola to the population. They have all that in place. The high probability is that they're going to administer the die-off as planned, that there will be approximately 500 million of us left at the end of it. That's from 7 billion. So that means 6 out of 7 of us will be gone.
Wow.
People. The likelihood that that's going to happen over the next 3 or 4 years is very high. And that ultimately, they still don't win. They still do not win. The reason is, you've got to be an idiot to try to defeat God in the way the universal laws work. And they're working against the laws. And that you can't work against the laws without generating your own karma. That's just the way it is. I don't care how satanic you think you are, or how smart you think you are, you ain't going to get around God's glory.
I wish you could see my face right now because I have to watch this video probably about 15 more times in order to pull all of the resources that you gave me today. My last 2-part question is, have you ever feared for your life? Knowing what you know, have you ever been fearful that you will try to be silenced?
Great question. And I've answered that so many times in so many different ways, but I'm going to give you a novel one. I want you to look on revolutiontelevision.net for Prince, rock and roll icon, Prince, his final sermon. Look for the videos of the 3-part series discussion on Prince's final sermon that we produced and put up about 2 months ago. Fantastic, but it raises the issue that you're raising. The question is whether I worry about dying or not. It's such a stupid question, really, when you start to think about it in a greater perspective. Mm-hmm. Especially from the perspective that Prince was talking about in his final sermon, as we discuss in our analysis of it, where we have a brother, James, talked about, for example, subscribing to the tree of knowledge versus the tree of wisdom. Science subscribes to the tree of knowledge. That's the egocentrism within us. That's the demon within us. It's the fallen part of humanity. It's like the great fall in the Garden of Eden.
Yes.
We get harmony with divinity, and suddenly now we are engaged in thinking that we've got to know everything and what our knowledge is going to set us free, when in fact we started free. We started in communion divine, and in that tree of wisdom, our heart is open, we're in love, and we're in heaven, on earth. Mm-hmm. And so that's the real, it goes down to fighting the demon within each of us. If you're worried, and I know you're not, Tayla, because you're having me on, you're doing your activism work in Boston, which is the hardest market to break in this whole area. So I honor you and I acknowledge you for doing a virtually impossible job that was so impossible that I actually had to leave Boston. So I can tell you that each of us has to fight that inner demon. Number one tip, you can't optimally live if you're worried about dying. You can't. You can't experience that optimal blessing unless you come to terms with the depths of your mortality and literally the depths of the darkness in society. You know, again, there's a con job operating heavily in Boston. Heavily. Boston is a hotbed for New Age thinking. The New Agers have been conned. The New Age movement was a con job from the very beginning. The reality is, again, I'm saying this as a scientist, as a mathematician, as somebody engaged in research and development in these fields. Mm-hmm. The concept that all you have to do is surround yourself with light. Again, this is the challenge that I have with Deepak Chopra. You know, his message is a complete New Age message, and it's got some involvement in our Ayurvedic medicine involved, and how wonderful. Natural medicine, holistic medicine, terrific. But that's a con job to think to yourself, all you have to do is surround yourself with light, and you'll be protected. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. You have to believe that Sherry and I received 2 or 3 phone calls a month from parents who believe that, took their children to the doctors for vaccinations, and now have devastation. They thought wonderful about the doctors. And the same thing I have from the Christian right, the Christian community. They're out to lunch, completely out to lunch, thinking to themselves, oh, the doctors are serving God, they're godly servants, and pharmaceuticals are medicines that you can trust because they're of God. Excuse me, you're under gross deception. The bottom line is God gave you everything. If you're such a good Christian, why would you place faith and trust in a medical deity? Mm-hmm. Why would you not go to prayer? Real, heartfelt, loving, intention, and faithful prayer is the key that Jesus spoke about. If you truly were a Christian, you would be practicing that. So that's the reality. Again, if you don't follow the laws that are righteous, because they're just facts, they just are. 1 and 1 is 2. Unless you're a liar and a cheater. That's how simple this is. 528 is love. It's the reason grass is green. It resonates at 528 nanometers of light. A buddy of mine, this is like unbelievable. We have so many wonderful people globally that support the work that we're doing. 2 days ago, a buddy of mine called us up and said, guess what? I just discovered. He says, that property that you have in Hawaii that Central Intelligence has taken over and you're engaged in litigations up to the yin-yang in Hawaii against the system of injustice that's stealing your property, your ministry's property? I said, yeah. He says, well, did you know that mountain that they want to build a telescope, the 30-meter telescope, this huge, and it's the most powerful telescope in the history of the planet, to be able to search the galaxies for better than any time in history. That's at 19.4832 longitude. And at your property that's receiving the water that Dr. Emoto did the analysis in the crystallography that showed the rebirth of the planet, with the message in the water taken from this property. It's online. On the 528 Revolution. You can read that article. Talks about the disappearance of the sacred water up on that mountain. And this is what our colleagues in the Hawaiian sovereignty movement and the opposition to the construction of that telescope, which is all the multinational corporations, and they don't give a damn about people. They don't really even give a damn about the science of astronomy. What they really give a damn about is military occupation and dominance on the planet. And so the bottom line, he says, define that number of 19.4832, which is precise longitude of that mountain. It says divide it by what you taught me, Glenn. Tesla's famous quote. This is Nikola Tesla, last century's greatest genius, Tesla. Said, quote, humanity only knew the powers of the 3s, 6s, and 9s. It would be a completely different universe. And he says, I divided 19.4832 by 369, and I got 0.0528.
The megahertz.
So and I can read the book of 528 Prosperity Key of Love, and you'll see there's so much massive science that says that your heart is vibrating in sync with the heart of nature. Hey, Tayla, I got to get going because I've got a Russian television station calling me for an interview.
I thank you so much for your time. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I love you so much. If you are ever in the Boston area, I would love to wrap my arms around you to just listen to you speak.
Well, August, why don't you schedule something? Why don't we do something in August for a group? Contact the Nation of Islam in Roxbury and see if you can get any support for us to do a community event. And then invite all the Christian community, invite the Jewish community. Let's have an educational, edifying conference for everybody, okay?
That works for me. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day.
You too. God bless. Aloha.
Good rising, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I am Tayla Andre. It has nothing to do with time of day. We link up, baby. Wake up that third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. Today, I had one of the most unorthodox. Today was the best interview I ever had in my life. Today, I interviewed Dr. Horowitz who is a Harvard professor, was a Harvard professor. He, for 4 decades, worked at Harvard. He was Harvard trained. He knows everything about everything. Like, he's fucking dope, okay? No words. You want to talk about Freaky Friday? We talked about how the water in your body can alter like that based on your words, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. We talked about chemtrails, contrails. We talked about Monsanto. We talked about the vaccines. We talked about genetically modified foods. We talked about everything. And Dr. Horowitz isn't, the entire interview. He's dropping facts. Footnote in this book by this author, like, facts. You want to talk about due diligence? So he's an MD, he's a scientist, he's a doctor, he's written countless books, he has documentaries. He was the director of Unvaxxed, which talks about vaccines. I cannot tell you how absolutely amazing he is. Shout out to Mosque number 11 because he is coming in August of 2018. We are having an event, God willing, Allah willing, Buddha, Krishna, the sacred cows of India. Like, whoever it is that you believe in, I need you to, when 2 or more touch and agree, I need you to agree that Dr. Horowitz is going to be here in August 2018. We are going to have the most epic fucking event on truth, on religion, on science, and he merges science and religion as if they are one. Because, the state and religion they don't mix. Religion and state do not mix. But Dr. Horowitz takes religion and science and how the two are the same thing. How it's the same. How we have been bamboozled. He talks about media. He talks about education. Everything. And we talked about everything. So I posted it on Facebook. I don't know if you watched it, but I posted it on Facebook. It's currently being converted now. It was on YouTube, but I think I'm still on YouTube, actually. On YouTube, it was... Yeah, we are still streaming.